Hi. I rested for some time, but I want to finish this podcast about light so that I will be relaxed and think that I have done my job. So we finish at the biological clock. Biological clock is very important because there are genes in our cells which work according to the time, and it is programmed for that. And the exposure to the sunrise or just before the sunrise till 11 a.m. it makes the mitochondria to work differently from working at 4 p.m. So the mitochondria do not do the same thing in the 24 hours. It shifts in producing the protein during the day. So in the morning it will produce the hormones, it control the blood sugar and control the temperature, and we have to wake up in the morning. And so the mitochondria produce a lot of things, and he said, Professor Glenn Jeffrey, that we have a joke in the lab that the mitochondria in the afternoon they do the ironing, which means that they go out of the cell, they move inside the cell and they attach to other organelles inside the cell. So I advise everybody to look to the biology of the cell in electron microscopy, the image which is enlarged millions of times on the, for example, on Google. And then they have the joke that it do the ironing, meaning it will do different job by getting even outside of the cell and communicating with other cells, and at least six cells. So they are talking, communicating with each other. So then when they did the experiment, exposure of the retina to light, near infrared light, 670 nanometer, they exposed it during the morning. Because if they did the experiment at midday, there is no effect. Because the mitochondria shift. And the dose was, the effect is not dose related, it is like a switch, which is a click. So, and the energy, we don't need too much energy. He said milliwatts. And there is a torch, the battery, it was work on battery, operated by, and it get down, it is 1 milliwatt, and still it works and produce good effect. But he said that in industry, we use more powerful instrument to get more results. But this is not the true things. So this is, and they find that the effect of the red light, the long wavelength, is more important in the elderly and in the macular degeneration. And the macula is the center in the retina, which is focused on reading. But they said if you live to 100 years old, 20% of these people will have macular degeneration. And they did a study on women and husband as control. Women, they are more affected by macular degeneration, and they expose them to the red light, the long wave, and there is no result, failure. The husband, they get very good improvement. Why the women, they did not get benefit? Because he said the disease is too far advanced, the cells are too damaged, so it is not useful. So he said if we are clever, we should expose the retina earlier, not late in diseases, because it does not work. So he said that the cells are not working. So he said the mitochondria has effect on aging, on diseases, on mitochondrial diseases, but the disease should not be advanced. It should be early, and it is all about energy and about the setting of the experiment. He said we try to do experiment on rheumatoid arthritis when the joints are changing in shape. It doesn't work, it failed. But when we start with pain only at the early stages of the disease, there is a great response, and it improved by 20%. But he said we aim to get 80% improvement. It is much better. So also he repeat the shining of the red light, long wavelength on the back, a small area 4 inches by 6 inches, and all the body is affected because the blood sugar is controlled. So it is the effect is not only the focus on the tissue which is affected, but the system. There is systematic change, and it is general change in the body. So it is a proximal effect which is near the tissue exposed to the red light, and distal effect. Distal mean in Latin far away. So Professor Andrew Haberman, he said, if I have a problem in my gallbladder and I expose my gallbladder to the red light, he said it will work. He said because we did experiment by exposing the cap of the knee joint to red light, the long wavelength infrared light. It improves the pain and improves the inflammation, and it will take 1 hour on the knee. But the good effect on the hands, it take about 24 hours, because the mitochondria, they act as community, but he said they need time to let the message go out and the story to be separate. They talk between each other, and they have stories. They are very nice. So he said, what is the signal and what is the source of this signal? He said it is the cytokine, which is chemical produced by the cell, which is inflammatory. And this chemical, if it is in a small amount, it is good because it will stimulate the immune system to do healing and repair. And also they find that there is micro means small, very small, which you can see in the electron microscopy, and vesicle. They are small sac which carry a cargo, carry many particles, which is communication particles. And this will go between the cell, and it is very complex. Sometimes it carry cargo, not single, perhaps 50 up to 300 different chemicals. So he said we need mathematician when we study the mitochondria to give us the results. It's so complicated, he said, because these mitochondria, they get out of the cell, they visit their neighbors, and they are very flexible, very malleable. They spread in water, they bounce out in water. So Professor Andrew Haberman, he said, if you go 10 feet deep in the water, you could see red color and orange color, because it absorb and reflect the red light and the orange light. But we don't see this red light deeper, but the fish still live deeper. So this is very interesting, because people are exposed to the blue light in the screens, in the iPhone, in the iPad, in the computer, but the main thing is the balance. Is not single wavelength. He said, Professor Jeffrey said, I exposed myself to the screen light. He was not affected. But he said the problem is not the screen light. The problem is this artificial LED light, which happened since 2000 and perhaps more in 2005. So in the last years, when we stopped the incandescent light and we start this LED light, the LED light was discovered because it save energy. It save energy, and it is a bright light. We could see through it. But light function is not only to see. In the sunlight, there is red and infrared light, which is therapeutic. It is essential for the health of the cell, because the mitochondria evolve with red light, near infrared light, mid infrared light, and far infrared light, and we cannot see it by our eyes. So it is more important for the health of the mitochondria. So the light, it's not only really for seeing. And he said this is a very big problem, because he saw a report written by a Dutch scientist, and it is submitted to the European Commission to discuss it, because it is a public health issue and it is really, really serious. And now we can talk about it because we have the data and the information. So the LED, it has energy, It helps us to see, but there is no red light, so it is risky. So now, he said we did experiment on animals. We exposed them to LED light, this artificial light, and we saw that there is a reduction in the electric potential, in the electrical activity across the inner membrane of the mitochondria, which is folded, called the cristae, and it gets destroyed. Also, they notice in real time, and also the breathing, it becomes less. And this way, they watch it on the experimental animal. Also, the blood sugar is not controlled and it starts to raise. And then the rats, they start to behave in a peculiar way, just like psychological mental diseases. Why? Because the normal rat, they move in the periphery, then they come to the center. But when they expose them to the LED artificial light, they become crazy. They did not behave the normal way. And there are a lot of experiments. They will going to publish it next year, so this is early. Also, these rats, they start to have fatty liver, small liver, small kidney, and small heart. And the experiment on the rat is the same on the human. So a human who have fatty liver is not only from the food and sugar and fructose, it is from exposure to artificial light. And this is called, it's very important because the exposure to artificial LED light, it's called systemic general effect. And if the liver gets smaller, the liver is very important hub for detoxification and to reduce the toxin in the body. So it is called liver distress syndrome. Also, the sperm in the testicle, they become abnormal shape, abnormal morphology, and abnormal behavior, and abnormal movement. And so men who are complaining of infertility, and they do semen analysis and they see abnormal numbers, so they have to check their exposure to the LED light and their sleep in the night. And also another professor, which is called Benjamin Bickman, he speak about the more insulin resistant, the less the sperm production and the less healthy sperm. It is very, very important because the sperm are produced in the testicles by Leydig cells, and if the man live a healthy life, he could produce sperm and fertile all his life. It's not like women. I mean, in our case, we are born with millions of ovarian follicles, but through life, these get dead follicle, and we stay with about 300,000 follicle. And then when we reach the menopause, the ovary, it has no follicle at all, and estrogen hormone will drop. Men are different. So this is all due to the exposure to the LED light and the short wavelength, which is 220 to 240 nanometer, because the mitochondria are not protected by red light and near infrared light. And this is very serious, like the asbestos, which is used in building to make roofs and in the building. So this affects the human biology. So the problem started in North America in 2010 when they noticed the study of the age, of the lifespan. We human, we start to increase, our age is increased, but since 2010 we start to get lower. Lifespan is less. Of course, we have to take COVID exposure and COVID, the problem, into consideration. So he said, it is very important to think that the mitochondria evolved through generation, billions of years, by red light, near infrared light, mid-infrared light, and far infrared light. So the balance is very important and it has a protective effect. The LED is not balanced, so it will cause diseases. The same like food, you said there is macronutrient, micronutrient. It needs balance. The balance is very important, and the body look for order and look for coherence, rhythm, order. So also he said it is careful when you buy these tools in the market, in the commercial market. They are not medically certified, because they say the light, artificial light, it is like sunlight. He said it's not, because they examine these tools and they find they are not more than 700 nanometer, but the sunlight, it could extend up to 3000 nanometer and more. So if they want to do really LED light like sun, they need many LED bulbs. For example, 670, 700, 750, and this will be many LED bulbs, and they should be compressed, and there will be high energy, and it will cost a lot of energy, and the mitochondria will know it is compressed LED light, because it is not natural sunlight. It will know. And no, it's not like the incandescent light, which is the bulb we use with a thread, and it is a red light. It gives heat and it breaks quite easily, destroyed. But he said the alternative is they are very gentle, these incandescent light. So we can use halogen light, which is similar to incandescent light, but it lasts longer, especially if we dim it, if we make it less, it will last, he said, forever. This is a Professor Glenn Jeffrey, who's a neuroscientist in London. He worked in Morphead Hospital. Morphead Hospital is one of the very well known in the world, specialized in eye diseases, and it has more patients than any hospital in the world. It's very busy. So I said the other thing which will help us is, when we evolve, we use fire, we use candles, but of course, then we use incandescent light. But of course, if we use candle and our houses are wooden, there is a risk of fire, so we have to be very careful. So there is a dramatic change in the artificial lighting since 2000, and our body is exposed to a confined wavelength of light, and the body is not experienced. It has no experience with such light before. The same like processed junk food. Our body is not used to such type of food. That's why we get sick. So the red light panel, which we buy and use it at home, sometimes it works like laser. So he said, please don't expose yourself to laser, because it is, especially your eye or your body, because it is not good. It will harm you. Because the body is not exposed before to monochromatic wavelength, single wavelength. It's not good. So artificial red light devices, they claim it is useful for pain relief, and it is called photobiomodulation. He said in general they could be safe, and they could offset the effect of LED light, but the majority are small, and they open many of these devices and they find them very bad. And a lot of LED in the commercial devices, it is bad, but sometimes they are good. We don't know, he said. So incandescent light, it cannot be found in Northern America now. But we could use halogen light, which is like incandescent light, but it is better. It will not break so quickly. In my case, I think halogen light also is very delicate, because I have many halogen light. They break. So he said in industry they use powerful energy, and this is not good. We don't need so much. So the red light, the long wave, it is, he said, in our experiment, it was useful in color vision and to reduce macular degeneration. And we find a good effect even after 1 week when we measure, after 1 month, after 2 months. And he said we did this experiment in the winter, in November and December, but then Christmas came and the experiment has to stop. So Professor Andrew Haberman asked him, what about the people who work outdoor or in the farms? He said, we did not do the experiment in these cases because it is out of the control, but we did it inside the building. So now the building, the new architecture, because of thermal regulation, and they don't want to heat to rise so much, so they did glass the windows, the door, all blocking the red light and near infrared light, and allow only the other wavelengths like blue light. And so now he said in architecture we are talking about healthy lighting. On some buildings they are start to strip off LED. Number 2, we have to spend more time outdoor. We cannot offset the effect of LED. And the people in building with LED, artificial light, and glass blocking windows, we have to go outside, do our lunch. For example, if you are working in a building like that, go outside and eat for half an hour, your break outside, outdoor. Or do your phone call outside, outdoor. And wear thin clothes so that the red light will pass through the skin. And perhaps you could use a few incandescent light or halogen light. Even small table lamps. Then there is a discussion about the children in the schools. The children in the school, because they use the devices for learning, so we should dim the screen. Perhaps we can use glasses to block the blue light, because the artificial LED light will affect the blood sugar. It will cause spiking and rising of blood sugar level. So the children should be in a dim light, because even 100 lux it is dim. So we use 10 lux because this all raise the blood sugar. Even this small amount, it will raise the blood sugar. Because the wavelength is 420 to 440 nanometer, but the blue light, we find it is 450 nanometer. It is long wavelength. It has no effect on its own. So we need the balance. In China and Asia now there is a high incidence of myopia or short-sightedness. Of course, he said we could correct it with lenses. The more myopia, the more the glass are thicker. So the vision will be good. But when these children grow to the age of 40 years old or 50, the eyes will get longer and the retina will get stretched, and it will become less cohesion. It will be stretched, and then there will be tear, and the cell will die, and it's called detachment of the retina. And sometimes we'll end up with blindness. So now this is very serious problem. So in China they took many measures. First of all, the table in front of the chair, they put bar away from the text, so the child will not go forward close to the text, make a distance. And from my personal experience with myopia and children, it's better they listen than to look at the text. So the hearing will become more focused to help the eye to rest. Number two, this is from me, they didn't say it in the book. There are devices which I have seen even in Iraq and Baghdad, medical devices which are brought from Sweden, imported to the country. Very big glass lens to enlarge the text. Very big, like television. So this is for short-sighted and for people with difficulty in vision. It's very, very good. It will help such children. But of course, this is very expensive. So in China, they did this modification of the tables and the chairs, how they look and how far they look from the test. And also they put red light. They use incandescent light. And it is very important to use red light, not to use laser, because the laser will burn the eye and the skin, and it causes caustic effect. What does it mean, caustic effect? He said it is just like the red light from the laser. It will scatter over a shallow lake and will produce a bright spot and dark spot. And the bright spot are caustic. It will kill the cells. Why? Because the energy in this bright spot is 3 times or 4 times more. So it is a triple. The triple in Latin means 3 times. So we shouldn't use laser unless it is medically indicated. And who suggests that are the physicists. The physicists, they know light and the equation for light. It's not the doctors. Also, they make the window in the school big and not tinted to allow the sunlight. They use incandescent light because this is low cost and low energy, and they dim it, because if they dim it, it will produce more infrared light. Also, they put a plant indoor, because a plant, it reflects infrared light. So he said in California, if the temperature is 80 Fahrenheit and you touch the leaves of the plant, they are not hot. Why? Because the leaves emit red light to do thermal regulation, to regulate the temperature of the plant. So the plant is very important. And if we bring a machine and measure the red light and the infrared light emitted by the plants, we find it is very good, like the therapeutic dose of red light, infrared light, which they use in their experiments. So it is very therapeutic. So indoor plant is very important, and also outside the plant is very important, because they did an experiment in Midwest in the United States, and they grow tall trees in the north side, facing north, so it will produce infrared light, and it emitted, reflected towards the building, and it will enter the building. And this is very important. And they did experiment by taking blood from these people in the building, a blood to check an inflammatory marker, which is called C-reactive protein, CRP, high sensitivity, HS. also the marker for stress, the cortisol hormone. Then after 3 years they came and they found all these markers are reduced. So there is benefits. There is benefits. And also they did experiment windows, and there are curtain, closed curtain, and they brought infrared camera, which is very strong, and put it under the edge of the curtain, and they saw red light, just like fire. So they opened the curtain and they found there is a plant outdoor opposite the windows. So it is very important. So this experiment in Midwest, they plant 1,000 trees. So those people who work indoors for 5 hours, they should go out in the park or in the woodland, because you will feel better. Because the building are always with artificial LED light and a glass which is a block red light. So now very important to look after the architecture of our building. So Professor Andrew Huberman, he said, we are now becoming, as we become more modern and we become more indoors, we should bring the outdoor inside. For example, we should do exercises instead of doing outdoor, we should do it indoor. And we are doing this, he said, in the gym or in our private homes. But ideally speaking, we should do our exercise outdoor. So if you can't go outdoor, at least you will have to go out at least 10-20 minutes. This is Professor Andrew Berman, he said. And also, we have to bring, because we are not out in agriculture and farmers, so we have to bring the plant indoors, plants inside the building. And the windows are big, and the glass is not tinted to allow the light and to regulate the temperature in the building. And if we put the red light, like this red light, near the plant, it will reflect the red light, and it is very good. So he said when we did the experiment, we did it in the morning. It is effective to produce good result in well-being, energy. So lighting and healthy lighting is very important in schools, in our homes, in hospitals, and even in intensive care unit, because they find that patients in intensive care unit, they develop psychosis after they are discharged. It is temporary psychosis. Psychosis means madness, because it affects the brain. So if we are not exposed to long wave red light, we will have more metabolic dysfunction. Dysfunction means diseases. More mitochondrial diseases. More myopia, short-sightedness. And if we have genetic biases, we will have very serious diseases. And it is a very significant public health problem. So we have to be careful in our architecture, in our commercial building, residential building, but we have to think of the cost. Because usually he said, when we did give quota in building, usually it become more. Say, for example, they give us quota 1 million. After that, it will become 1.5 million. And the light, it is done at the end of the building, so they choose cheap light source to reduce the cost. The cost is very important in building. But now the architect, they argue with the in the group and in the committees, they said, if we put this long wave red light, how many days the patient will stay in the intensive care unit? Less. Or how many days we will save? They don't stay in hospital bed, because it is very costly to stay in intensive care unit and in hospital bed. So this is how we should think about the health benefit. And also, we could use candlelight sometimes. But we have to be careful not to burn the building. So Professor Glenn Jeffrey is always insisting that we have to do it at zero cost or low cost. So he said in the morning in his kitchen he put halogen lamp for about 45 minutes. In the morning he said I should spend 5 minutes, but I waste my time 45 minutes. It give me bright light. And also it is like in condensant light, but I could dim it down and will be giving more red light and reduce the energy bills. So this is very important. He said now that we have many PhD students that are doing about 50 doing experiment, and there will be a lot of work. He said, I have only a small piece of the apple or the pie. There is more research about light. And the story about children with mitochondrial genetic diseases. He said many babies that are born with genetic diseases affecting the mitochondria, and they will not live long. They will not last more than 25 years old because they will die of heart failure or they are disabled. But he said the ethical committee, they gave permission for one baby or one girl, and she started to move and she go to school. And Professor Jeffrey, he became so emotional, he went to the bathroom, he said, and I started sobbing and crying because he was so happy that he saw changes. He said this patient, she cannot open even her eyelid. It is called ptosis, but then she improved within 1 month, and she started to go to the school. And this is it, he was very happy. So the red light, he said, it is very safe and there is no problem and does not cost too much money. So we have to change the bulb at home. And now they do research about patients with retinitis pigmentosa. Retinitis, retina means retina, at the back of the eye. Itis means inflammation, pigmentosa means pigment. So the results are not published yet. It will be published in the future. And he said they don't tell me because they know I will talk about it and they want to keep it secret until they publish the paper. So he is talking about himself. And he said the donor is from USA. They gave them the money for donation on this project of changing the bulbs, how it works. But he said, funnily enough, Moorfield Hospital, which is the very big hospital specialized in eye diseases, they are building a new hospital which is all glass, but the glass is blocking the red light and near infrared light, and they are putting cheap artificial LED light. So he said, we are learning, but we are learning very slowly. This is a joke. This is how they end up the podcast. And of course Professor Andrew Huberman, he thanked him because he came from London to America to do this podcast, but he said, no, don't thank me, because in London there is no sunlight and here I find sunlight. So thank you and goodbye. So I finished this podcast. It's very interesting. At least for me, I enjoyed it.